even remember the old war. Well, you wouldn't anyway. She made sure all the Tenno forgot. A mercy, I suppose.
Hey all, Siege here, and today we begin to dive into the Valis Undermine update by examining the Teacher, a quest specifically targeted towards new Tenno, and yet I would highly recommend even the longest tenured of you out there to play it if you enjoy the lore, because there are a few very interesting aspects added that, in my opinion, not only answer some long-standing questions, but further bridge the story together in a more understandable and cohesive manner. Add to that, you get a weapon out of it, so it even rewards your time in the end. Now, the Teacher is set shortly after the events of Vor's Prize, so very early in the Tenno's journey. Having successfully separated themselves from Vor's influence through the Ascaris.
Tenno. Good. You managed to disarm Vor's Ascaris. I thought I lost you.
They're now tasked by the Lotus with intercepting Corpus forces from scavenging what weapons and technology were left behind in his defeat. In this case, a mod segment. Something of particular value lay neglected and dormant. With the Corpus quickly approaching this relic, the Tenno is met with it being protected within the context of the new player experience. They are introduced to Teshin, a Dax soldier, at this point still loyal to the twin Grineer queens, and yet once was a distinguished mentor for our characters during a different time. In disbelief that one of these warriors has awoken and further defeated Captain Vor, he's still unsure of who they really are because of how diminished their combat skills had apparently become, and in this, he decides to take it upon himself to ascertain who they really are.
What happened to you?
What are you doing here?
I need to see for myself. Have the Tenno risen? Or is this another Lotus trick?
First by allowing them to defend the mod segment, and then by taking a closer look.
Teshin Dax. This Tenno is not your foe.
We shall see.
Teshin captures the Tenno and takes him to his ship, where he reveals a very important piece of information.
She made sure all the Tenno forgot. A mercy, I suppose.
When first awoken in game, the reason for the total memory loss of literally everything that had occurred in the past, even the very things the Tenno had taken part in themselves, was in fact a product somehow of the Lotus. Acting as a kind of surrogate mother, she decided to somehow wipe the Tenno's mind of all they had understood of the collapse, a complete ruination of our origin solar system, brought about firstly by the reprehensible few who ruled the galaxy, if you will, but also by those that had attempted to oppose them in what was known as the Old War, a war that was largely waged by the sentients, artificial beings, and those responsible for creating them, known as the Orkin, the aforementioned domineering facet of humanity that had taken control of the masses as lesser individuals, commissioning or even enslaving, if need be, to become the workforce of these Golden Lords, a title they are referred to as frequently. This a reference to their proclivity for wearing gold, typically adorned across gleaming white robes to portray their own idea of purity as well as to instill awe amongst the commoners, if you will. The Sentients were originally created specifically to head to a new area of the universe, Tau, and terraform it in preparation for these same elites. But because they had achieved sentience, hence their name, as well as an understanding of their Orkin makers, and how they stripped and pillaged their own solar system, they decided against both completing a project to offer the Orkin transport to Tau, but also they returned and attempted to make certain these lords would never enslave their home in the same way, by going to war with them. And they would have easily won if not for the Warframes, who proved far too powerful, even for the Sentients. In fact, if not for the Lotus's decision to change sides, if you will, the Orokin would have had their way once more. Which begs the question, what caused this change of heart? Well, that's a mystery Tenno are meant to solve on their own, in time. But for now, any kind of explanation past this little hint would stay buried as the operator wakes up. Teshin, obviously worried about potential retaliation, has taken it upon himself to disable our Warframe's abilities, forcing us to engage him with only terrestrial weapons, leveling the playing field and compelling an interest in modding weapons for situations in the future where the Warframe abilities won't be enough. This is a necessary precaution, as the tricks of the Lotus apparently included her mimics taking the form of Warframes, confusing those in the battlefield during the Old War, and probably costing many Orokin lives in the process. But once we have proven our identity, because of course,
you do not truly know someone until you fight them.
He takes on a more mentor-like tone and explains that much of the Orokin's military power was in fact derived from this very system, mods allowing their forces to far exceed their initial potential, adding that even the Warframes can benefit from this invaluable technology, offering increasing attack and defense benefits far greater than the Warframes are capable of on their own. The mods themselves, they are in fact a creation of a very specific cephalon. You've probably seen multiple times if you've ever unveiled a Riven mod. Simodius is thought to be the creator of mods and the mod system in general, although he is quite enamored with himself for making such wondrous things. He's none too excited in new players using them. In fact, he specifically limits the amount of Rivens one can keep on hand when they are first introduced, considering us too simple to be able to handle the finest of his works due to the potential negative aspects they can incur. But like everything else in game, we get our hands on as many as possible, and I have to believe that the efficiency the community is able to use these mods with, the sheer force the Tenno can now wield, would probably put a smile on his face. Well, if he still had one, of course. Simodius' lore has largely been abandoned, so I'm not sure we'll even get to know any more about him like we do with some of the others in game, which is somewhat disappointing given how important these items are, as well as how much of a douche Simodius seems to be. I personally could see many comedic interactions had between us and him, Ortis and him, even the Lotus and him. Who knows? Maybe one day we will get more. Here's to hoping, if nothing else. Continuing on with the quest, Teshin resumes his instruction on how mods increase power, as well as how they can be alchemized, combining elements to create more devastating variations. But the lesson is cut short by a Corpus Retrieval Squad being deployed in to secure the mod segment that Tenno had previously themselves taken, and after engaging a number of them, Teshin directs us to take the segment and retreat to our orbiter, with him holding off the tide in order to guarantee the relic's escape. After successfully returning to the orbiter, the Corpus Treasurer, hell-bent on claiming the mod segment, contacts and informs the Tenno that Teshin has in fact been captured and they are willing to make a deal.
Teshin gave you that mod segment. Maybe he can be trusted. Install it at once. You will need maximum power for your next mission.
My power is maximum!
Prove it.
However, now more knowledgeable of our gifts and having no intentions of such a thing, we install the mod segment, use it to fortify our weapons and Warframe, and travel to the ship our former and future mentors being held.
Teshin is deep within this ship. Cut through the Corpus and find him.
Sweet fortune. What are the odds? Another bird flies into my hands. Oh, Nephonia will pay dearly for the two of you. Corpus, take the Tenno. Dead or alive, it matters little.
Upon the instructions of our Lotus, we cut our way through multiple Corpus until encountering Teshin's holding cell. And it's at this point we are only then informed of our true intentions here.
She sent you to rescue me?
Not quite, Teshin. The Tenno is on a capture mission.
Very well, if you think they are ready.
Squaring off once more, we put the Dax soldier down.
Okay, Lotus. Let's talk.
And after breaking him out,
No! My ship! By the tenets, how is this possible?
Treasurer, may I make a suggestion? Put out a distress call. When you do, let them all know. The Tenno are back.
a kind of tenuous alliance is formed.
Lotus, what you had the Tenno do to the Orokin, it was necessary. I concede that now. Will you tell them the truth of the matter?
In time, there are difficult conversations ahead. They will need a mentor.
You trust me to do this?
If you trust me to be their Lotus.
It is not my choice. It is theirs.
This is just the beginning, and many more adventures await the Tenno. This only being the start of an incredible ride, one in which Teshin will continue to play a substantial role in. Dare I say, an invaluable one, before it's all said and done. The Teacher, in my opinion, is a fantastic little addition to the story of the game, as it offers a fair bit of additional information to the new player, but doesn't do too much, because that could just add confusion in the end, and more importantly, this introduces Teshin at a more appropriate point. For many, really anyone that didn't engage in Conclave, and let's be entirely forthcoming, that's a pretty good section of the player base, well, they would not have had the same understanding of the circumstances regarding Teshin's relationship with Lotus, most likely being caught off guard during the Nata quest when, of all people, the Conclave guy shows up when the Lotus begins acting suspicious. Had they visited Teshin before this, however, they would have been privy to the information we would essentially relearn during the War Within.
We were led astray. We forgot the Conclave. So when that new evil came, we were not prepared. This is how we failed the Orokin. You went into stasis, but not me. I searched the long path for redemption, for the kind of balance only the Conclave can create. Now I return, only to find the Tenno still herded like livestock. Horrors from beyond the outer terminus are coming. The Lotus seduced the Tenno, led them on a complacent path like oxen. I failed the Orokin, but I will preserve their legacy. The Tenno. Now is the time for action.
Now presented here in The Teacher. For those that haven't been that far, this next part is heavy spoiler territory, so continue on at your own discretion. But this same premise was presented to the operator as one of the Grineer Queens was burrowing into their mind in her attempt at continuity, replacing the child's consciousness with her own.
What happened to you?
They gave up.
You betrayed me. You infested piece of...
Yes, do it. As I thought. The hard way, then.
So, the great Teshin is just a dog, fetching the Queen's stick wherever she throws it.
I warned you. Now you're trapped inside this place with the Queens burrowing in. Now I am forced to undo what Margulis did, to open the gates, and make you suffer. Margulis lied to you, a lie of omission. She did not cure the Zeraman children. She erased them. My only hope is that truth still lingers inside you, buried within your mind. The power and the misery of the void.
It opens the Tenno to their own true power, but also the evil that comes along with it. The information heard from Conclave, as well as during the teacher quest, continue to refer to the idea that the ultimate enemy, our ultimate enemy, is ourselves, and that we needed to be strong enough to deal with it. For a time, I believe many, like myself, thought of this in the colloquial sense. Our greatest enemy is the one within. But with all the added context of actually having to deal with ourselves, not just figuratively, but in person, as well as his reference to the horrors beyond the outer terminus, and specifically during the war within, the misery and the power of the void, I'm now inclined to believe that our teacher was attempting to actually prepare us for dealing with not just the sentience, but with the void as well. But how would he know? Well, Teshin is a high-ranking Orokin, one who has had an abnormally long life, especially considering he never endured any form of cryosleep himself, and yet he's appeared to not age. Well, not until reaching Duviri at least, with the manner behind that occurring still not formally explained as well. One could make the argument his long life was specifically attributed to the use of continuity and, by extension, the mysteries of the void. How even those who appear to have died can somehow live in this universe, or seem to live for unusually long periods of time with no clear explanation. Perhaps like others, we will come to find there is an unspoken connection to the void here, justifying his warnings against it.
If the Void Angels break through the wall, their master will be freed. Do not allow that to happen.
Another very interesting concept presented in the teacher is that Teshin is quite knowledgeable on how to disable Warframes. So it really did cement the thought that if the Tenno didn't do what the Orokin wanted, they would largely be at the mercy of any of the warriors wielding an Orvius, his projectile weapon. Teshin knocked out our systems with one hit, and in the War Within was similarly successful in disabling our Warframes. So it very much suggests that even the most powerful Tenno, back during the Old War, were nothing more than slaves to the Orokin, and in the end perhaps justified their involvement as their protectors, as well as fueling their eventual attack on the very same emperors. Of course, within this quest we come to learn that whether or not the Tenno wanted to overthrow their Golden Lords, or even if Warframes like Kalervo quietly incepted the plan they would use, it was in fact the Lotus that told them to do it. All of it. All of what they had done. To the Orokin, to the Seven, as well as her specifically forcing them back into cryosleep and to forget all of this. And I would have to assume that includes what was done to Margulis and their parents as well, not to mention what they really are. I'm not sure exactly what aspects of the Operator's lost past are encapsulated in this speech, but I don't think it out of the question to believe it to be all their old memories. Again, though, I would consider that speculation, but only to a point. Very much like Margulis, the Lotus didn't necessarily help the children. Rather, she erased them, and the literal moon as well, in order to seal the deception, something she may have had to give much more for than she necessarily wanted. Regardless, this idea would be the reason for his trepidation when first engaging the new Tenno. The Lotus essentially made herself and the Operators enemies of the Empire, which by definition would have made Teshin an enemy by association.
Know this, Tenno, that I am a Dax, a soldier of a lost era, the last of my kind. By Orokin hands, we Dax were given great power, great strength, but an even greater weakness. To obey their command, to never defy the Kuva, the scepter, the symbols of their dominion. No Dax can ever raise steel against an Orokin.
But we can see his attachment to the children, him most likely being high enough rank to know the truth of the Zariman rejects from the start and not willing to make enemies over trusted allies without at least confronting them personally, the very thing he does. As mentioned, this quest fills a fair bit of empty space that had previously existed within the story, and I think will offer new players a much better connection with Teshin when he shows up in future quests. And with all that, will certainly increase the emotionality of certain events he will eventually endure. Personally, I really enjoyed playing through this, and I think it's just one more step in trying to make the onboarding experience much more fluid and understandable, while at the same time giving veterans, especially those who love the lore, a few very fun moments to enjoy as well. My only real criticism here is I don't think it goes far enough in explaining the mods, but given how early this is, I can see a natural understanding being derived from both experience, as well as some of the in-game tooltips DE has been adding over the years to explain parts of the combat loop, specifically with understanding damage. It won't be enough to make one a master, mind you, but it gets them started, and I think if someone likes the game enough to keep going past this point, they will forge their own understanding to fit their needs as they progress further. I mean, that's what I did, if nothing else. But that is just my opinion. What do you think? Did you play it yet? With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this overview of the new quest and the very substantial lore aspects it actually confirms for us. I didn't really expect as much with how early in the game the teacher quest appears, but I'm grateful for what we got. At any rate, I hope you all have a wonderful day today, a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll talk at you all in the next one. Take care, everybody. Bye.